Welcome to Truth and Transcendence. You can find all our other episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. Today, I'm delighted to welcome special guest Liyana Silver, who's here today to talk about a number of things. We're going to start by talking about depth. And Liyana's got a very interesting particular take on what depth is all about. She's a relationship coach and author of Waking Up in the Dark Night of Divorce and Feminine Genius. Liyana works with women at the knife's edge of heartbreak, reckoning with divorce, breakup, and heartbreak so complex that they feel like a dark night of the soul. And I think any women listening to this will know that feeling. I know I do. Liyana helps individuals, couples, and groups reclaim what they lost in the relationship, break repeating patterns, and emerge awake, aligned, and lit up. What fantastic work. And you can find Liyana at liyanasilver.com, which is LYYANASILVER. So Liyana, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I'm so happy to be here. What a beautiful space you're curating.
Thank you. I do my best. I think many of us are creating beautiful spaces, aren't we? And I'm sure you are in your work as well.
That's right. Sanctuaries, portals. Yes. Good deep spaces.
So depth, this came up in our pre-call. You were telling me some stories about your story and how depth really became for you kind of a way through for you. Would you like to kind of cast your mind back to when you first encountered that as something that was really important for you and what it meant for you at that time?
Well, I can see how this has always been a part of my nature. So maybe this isn't the first instance, but there was a time, and this is nearly a decade ago, where I had just had a baby. And so that's a wonderful time. It's a portal time, right? There's an amazing being coming into the world through you. It is also a time where, if you're like me, where it was an unplanned surgery, near-death experience, and then you get handed a human being to take care of, but not sleep for the next 9 months. And so that is its own set of challenges, emotional, spiritual. And then, of course, when we're really at capacity, whatever is past patterns also are going to come up at that time. So at that time, I got very sick, mysteriously sick. 10 years later, there's a lot more information about what was going on, but it was quite mysterious at that time. And I wasn't able to sleep, and I would have shaking and panic attacks and have dreams of dying. And I was not in something that was life-threatening, turns out, but we don't know that, and the body doesn't know that. And at that time, I read a friend of mine, her book, and we had grown up together. I was reading a book that was, a bit of reminiscence. And in it, she spoke about a loss in her life and named it A Dark Night of the Soul. And the naming of that rang a bell somehow for me. And I thought, oh, this is where I am. This is what I name this. And so something that felt mysterious and disorienting got a little less so because it had a name and because it had a place. And that is a call to depth. But A Dark Night of the Soul takes us into the dark, not a dark, we discover, that is malintentioned or evil, but is the unknown and is the undiscovered and is what is to be unearthed. And it, has some poetic description like the underworld. So we really go down, we go into the depth. So depth for me is not only the unexplored, but it is also exactly where the next true aligned version of you is waiting to be unearthed and brought back up to the overworld for the next chapter of your life.
Wow. So that must have been because you were recovering from surgery, you're looking after a baby who won't let you sleep, plus you're sick as well. And then magically this book just came and you just saw that. So what happened after that?
So that felt like a lovely amount of guidance, someone to name it, because she wrote a book about her experience, then I knew at least one person in the world had made it through. And it didn't make the loss, it didn't make that better. Nothing makes that better. But I thought, this is a journey. This is an arc of transformation. If she did it, I can do it. Okay, let me learn from this. I'm all in. And so because I was going through it personally, I just was learning and trying. And then as I got better and got back to client work, I offered courses and then I went into a period of time where I started to have conversations with people for whom they had a divorce or breakup that they themselves would say is so complex, it would be a dark night of the soul. And in these conversations, I started to see, right, through my own experience and their experience, oh, there are phases of this journey. It's its own arc, but there are many initiatory or transformational arcs within it. And nothing speeds it along, nothing makes it all the way better, but there are mindsets, there are some tools that help along the way. And they often work in one phase and they're really bad. They don't work at all in another phase. And so I attempted to make a map of sorts of this terrain that refuses to be mapped, of course, but because this helps so much. Just even a few signposts, even a few suggestions really helps us as this is an individual journey. We have to make it through ourselves. And so I suppose I became an apprentice to the dark night of the soul, and really over the last quite a few years have devoted that to the portal of entry into the dark being heartbreak.
Oh, amazing and powerful that is. I mean, I'm just thinking, anyone listening to this, how many of us are thinking, oh my God, I wish I'd come across you when I was 12, 14, 17, 22, 33, all those
Right?
times,
Yes.
because you just don't know what to do you? You're just in pain, in the dark, and you just don't know what to do. So what a courageous thing to do. Did it feel at all scary doing this, formulating this?
Oh, great question. I think if we could do anything else, any of us, in the dark night of the soul, we would. Right? No one wants to go into the mouth of the lion or the pit of quicksand. No one. Of course, it's scary. It's the last thing we want to do. And then it just, everything else stops working or it makes it worse. But I do think that, I mean, I do think that there are some people who can avoid and numb and, right, and really not necessarily go into the depths. But most of the people that I encounter, something is called upon in them, right? So there's already a strong inner indomitable, even if it's a glimmer, sense that wakes up in this process and goes, this is awful. I would never choose this, but here I am and I'm in. And I think it is, yeah, absolutely terrifying and absolutely just feels like the right thing to do.
Yeah. Fantastic. Because when you were describing it, I thought that's a very courageous thing to do, to take that and map it for other people. It almost feels like you're not allowed to do that. You know what I mean? It's just as if the universe is going, I'm sorry, humans aren't supposed to do that. You're just supposed to suffer.
Right. Well, and I'm certainly not the first person to make a map of a really intense time. I'm certainly not the first person at by far. We find this in all kinds of mystics, in all kinds of myths, from, in fact, probably the earliest human experience. The initial time we began telling stories. And so that was also encouraging for me, that this isn't just singular misfortune or something I've done wrong to deserve a really bad time. This is something that humanity has been going through since the start of humanity. And there just might be some archetypal wisdom here for us. And I think that boosts courage a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So you're
Yeah.
rooting yourself in the ancestral wisdoms that came before. So
And
so
yes.
like listening to this, I can imagine people listening to it thinking, okay, I get that idea, but what archetypal wisdoms is she talking about? What sorts of things what sorts of things did you discover when you started taking a new approach to your particular dark night of the soul?
Well, I think that gathering clues is a good place to start. So as I was making some kind of map, one of the clues was a beautiful book. I know your listeners, your watchers will probably know it. It's a book called When Things Fall Apart by the American Buddhist nun Pema Chodron, and she's got several books on this. And it is very much about mindfulness in a Buddhist lineage. There's a piece that was given to me by a friend when I was really in a hard time. Things were falling apart. She gave me a book called When Things Fall Apart. And there is some instruction. It's not even a formalized exercise. But when really, really intense emotions come up, the instruction is, it's a little poetic, but the instruction is to essentially surrender to it, feel it all the way. If it were a sword, lean into it, let it pierce you. If it were a storm, let it wet you all the way to the bone. Now, I know that's not clear instruction, it is a bit poetic, but I took that and went, okay, I feel like if I felt this grief or this despair or this anger all the way, I might die, but I'm willing to die. And I know in the back of my mind, in my training and understanding of neurology and the way emotions work, I know that the circuitry in our brain registers emotional and physical pain in the same way. If we think we're going to get hit by oncoming heartbreak, it registers just like we would be hit by an oncoming train, right? This is a real patterning in our bodies. So I know this in the back of my mind. Logically, I know I'm not going to die, but still we have to deal with the body's assertion, I might. And that really any feeling has its life cycle. If we can feel it, it blows in, blows through, can be very intense, but it does ebb away. Not forever, but for that time. And we are left with some groundedness, maybe some clarity. So I said, all right, I'm willing to die. Probably won't, but I'm willing. I'm willing. There might be something here. Um, and that mindset, that willingness to be with something that you ordinarily would flee from or try to stuff down, absolutely. I mean, it is something I teach around. It is something very foundational. And in fact, I think it is the very heart of how we go to the depths and really find what we're looking for. It is, and in fact, in the lineage of Pema Chodron, she's in the lineage of Vajrayana Buddhist teachings. And one of the teachings says, in the poison is the medicine. In the place you want to resist, if you can go there and be there and you don't let it pierce you to the bone, the wisdom is what comes. Now, yes, this is not for faint of heart. We have to put our lips to the poison. um, someone, a former client of mine who actually is Vajrayana Buddhist Lama. We had a conversation the other day, and she reminded me. She said, "Here, this is what peacocks do." I didn't know this. Peacocks eat. I think it might be a kind of a pigment that is poisonous, and they eat it. Right? in the poison, and their bodies transmute it, and that is what makes the colors so vivid and memorable in the peacock tail, in their feathers. And so that was a nice visual of this
Incredible.
concept.
So it sounds like you went right into something and chose to go much deeper into it and came out. And were you different after you'd worked with it in that way? Did it change your experience of yourself and of your life?
Yes, absolutely. And I think when we're talking about this kind of change and transformation, it's not a makeover. It's not like we emerge, at our ideal weight or bank account amount, necessarily we might. um, but I think there is a profound transformation when we are more ourselves. And that doesn't happen just once in a lifetime. That is iterative. That happens many times. So I'm not a totally different person. I can recognize myself from then to now, and absolutely different, and absolutely more grounded, more sure-footed in these terrains to be able to guide other people through, more courageous to, go through the ups and downs, more understanding of emotions. I think also I think this is, if we can get this, I think this helps a lot as humans, that going into the dark or even a dark night of the soul doesn't necessarily happen once. It might, but the aim isn't to arrange our lives and kind of get it right so that hard things never happen to us. They will happen to us. Obviously, we want to orient more toward the joy and the connection and the beauty and meaning of life, but we don't avoid the other things. And if we can resist blaming ourselves and really spiraling down in shame because of the hard things, and know that this too shall pass. I'm going to apply my tools that I learned here. I can still stay connected to my innate sense of worth through all of this. I think that really, really helps us as humans.
Amazing. Well, it sounds like you're doing amazing work with
Mm.
people. Would you like to say a bit more about how you are helping people?
Oh my goodness. Well, I really believe in books, right? There I was in the dark night of the soul. I found a book that named it for me. And I think this is what books do. They find us right when we need it, and they give us the next step or a few steps to what we need. So I'm really delighted to have written a second one, but this is coming out. I think the other thing I hold near and dear is one-on-one work or with couples. And that is very individual and um, deep, right? Very different than a book, but same kind of thing. To be able to understand the underlying patterns that are keeping someone in their old self and shift those so that they can step cleanly into this new sense of themselves is an honor. Is an honor.
I'm curious. That sounds lovely, and I'm curious if you're working with a couple, um, because when we're in the dark night of the soul, we feel like we're alone there, don't we? Like we're the only one feeling it. So when you're working with a couple, do you often find that both of them are in the dark night of the soul, or do you often find that one of them is in the dark night of the soul and the other one's just doesn't quite know what's going on, that kind of thing? What do you discover in that regard with couples?
Yes, great question. And there is, of course, a way to do dyad work with the couples, and then sometimes there's some individual work that to be done as well.
Mm.
And I find mostly only one. And to be honest, it is a very hard thing and I know all of us can understand when we've been in times with extreme hardship, extreme loss. It is actually very, very difficult for a relationship to withstand the death of a child. Right? It's certain things that shake our individual foundations and shake the relationship so deeply. So often it's only one at a time. And often I'm working with someone individually on their passage through the dark night of the soul. But with couples, I think knowing what is going on for their partner who's in the dark and how to support, how to be a different level of patient is really, really helpful. I would add sometimes perimenopause and menopause acts like a dark night of the soul. It's different. But right, if it's a couple where one of them is going through perimenopause and menopause, these frames can be incredibly helpful and not take the relationship down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you sometimes find you're working with a couple where the man is going through a crisis around, who am I as a man? Sometimes in midlife, men go through this kind of crisis of what's my identity, what do I have to give, etc. And then the wife doesn't really know how to deal with it. Do you sometimes finding that with the couples?
Absolutely. Now, I'll say a few things. It's a bit generalized to say these things, but um, for the most part, women and those who've been socialized as girls, as women, as female, have been doing a level of self awareness and other awareness on a PhD level since they were 3. And then, especially right now in a cultural zeitgeist, there is either that's natural because this man is in that phase of his life or he's being asked to elevate in the relationship. That alone can be a crisis of sorts, right? Asking him to develop skills that haven't been asked of him thus far. Uh, and so that is its own challenge. And I think like any of us, here you are at the dark night of the soul. Do you want to go all the way into the depths and come out, right? If, here you are, this man in a relationship, do you want to confront these things you've never had to confront that are going to be probably the most difficult of your life? And I think willingness is the only thing we need. Well, the first thing we need.
Yes, it's not the only
Yes,
thing. If only it was the only thing we needed.
that's right. That's right.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yes.
I often, for years, I felt like there are beautiful men in the world who need some help navigating this new world that we're in, and they're just being told, "Bring out your feminine side," and that's not necessarily very helpful.
So very helpful. And we do have to understand that is the very thing that they have been conditioned on a PhD level since they were 3 to not do.
Exactly.
And so you're asking someone to make a turn in a session or two to do the thing for which they could be bullied or hurt or shamed and have been throughout their whole lives, and to access something they put in the dark, in the depths a long time ago. And I think it's a beautiful quest. I have no doubt it would create such wholeness and depth and strength in that individual. But yeah, uh, it's its own quest.
Mhm.
I will say just one more thing, which is I think it also is very important to understand when someone is in a particular phase of the dark night of the soul, sometimes you can't yet do the deeper work, or you can't yet do the how we're working on communication or the sexual connection. In fact, there are some things that really need to be attended first. Are, are you in a nervous system state where you can even be okay and present and your whole adult wise self can be present? And if not, let's stabilize there for the individual, for the couple. And once that is there, then we can go into the depths and we can work on skills in the relating. But it's not always immediately available, depending on how much dark night of the soulness is going on.
Right. Now that's a very interesting question, isn't it? Because I could imagine sitting in front of you with a partner and you asking me that question and me going, I honestly have no idea if I'm in the right state or not to do this. So what sort of things do people then need to explore to identify that, that they're kind of the state of their nervous system in terms of being able to then engage with this work?
That's right. I mean, that is a level of self-awareness that if you don't happen to have studied for the last 25 years as a therapist or coach like me, I wouldn't expect anybody to have. You know, I do have a resource that maps out, as we mentioned, the 5 phases of a dark night of heartbreak. And it can be really helpful because it names each phase and it says, here's how you know when you're in this phase. And when you're in this phase, try these things and these tools, but don't worry about these other ones. So we can talk a little bit more about that if that's someone that any listener wants to go to and help. But ideally, me as a coach would be able to hear um, what you're talking about, or just know did you just sign divorce papers? Are you working with the mediator? Did the person just leave you a voice memo that said they're not coming back? Like, where are we at? I can hear it from what they're saying. I can hear it from what phase of the dismantling they're in, um, and then be able to say to name it. Here's where we are. Let's do this first.
Got it.
And
So you're not expecting them to self-assess in that regard. You're helping them come to realizing where they are in the process and then helping them from there. That sounds like a delicate process.
Yes. Yes, I think people are um yes, yes, of course, delicate. I think people are yeah, a lot more sturdy though than sometimes it can feel in the moment of things falling apart. And if we can get the right nervous system support, if we can get the right action for them to do that begins to bring some stabilization, it snowballs in a very positive direction very, very quickly. But we don't know. I mean, we might know we're in a panic attack when it happens, but when we're in something, it just feels like the whole world. It is really hard to name it and understand what we need in it. Yeah. For that, we need help. We need friends. We need professionals. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And in my case, after a breakup from one very significant relationship, I prescribed myself a massage once a week for an entire year. And I think what you're saying about nervous system, that really supported my nervous system. Just knowing that was coming up, having the massage, feeling the benefit of it was an absolute godsend.
That's right.
And
That's right. And
we don't
well,
always think
please.
of doing those things for ourselves, do we?
Well, often there's going to be patterning that comes up that says, I put myself last. I don't put myself first. I don't deserve these things yet. Or, they just don't even come in our awareness. And yes, your instinct was so right on, especially for you, to be able to be held, not to hold life, to be held, to actually have the lymph moving and I think there is a layer of up in the body. For me, it is below the skin, it's below the fascia, it's below the muscle, but not above the bone, and I call it the layer of love, right? And if the massage therapist gets to that level, I just, in universal love. But right, there's just a level of letting your system know it is safe enough to be held, let alone the therapeutic benefits that are giving your system anti-stress hormones and chemicals, etc. So yes, great self-prescription.
Yeah. Yes, that was one of my better ideas at that time.
Yeah. We
Okay.
could swap bad ideas. Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to have time to go through all of the stages that you mentioned in the map, but I wonder if you'd like to just pick out one of them, any one, and just say a little bit about that one, because just the kind of a taster for us, if you're happy to do that, if that's not going to sort of ruin the overall gestalt of the map.
Not at all. Not at all. I would say the one that is maybe the most perplexing and difficult is the second phase, and I call it dissolution. And that is the phase when everything is falling apart. And it's really acute. We're suffering in our body, in our emotions, and we could have rumination, really like going over and over, trying to assemble the details. We could be having panic attacks. We could be very in waves of grief or despair. And so I like to name this. It is a phase. It does not last forever. All of these are phases. They may repeat. You might be in more than one phase at any given moment, but this is the most difficult. This is the phase in which I learned to, let something pierce me to the bone. So what I would say about this is, I'm so sorry. This is absolutely impossible. Um, of course, it makes sense you're feeling like this. This is the dismantling of everything from life to identity. So just to really, really have someone know, it makes all the sense in the world they are feeling this way. And we kind of don't want to hear this too shall pass in this phase. So I say it lightly. I put it as a little pinprick of light on the horizon. It is a phase, it will complete. And in this phase, if you can get a massage a week, right? Really, anything that does feel soothing is good. Your main task is to honestly keep breathing in and out, get through the next moment, get through the day. And if you can learn something that will help be soothing to your nervous system, please do that. Please learn that. And sometimes that is deep breathing. Sometimes that is massage. It's going to be different for every person. But that's the task of this phase. It will naturally give way to the next and subsequent ones. I think the phase right before it is where we go, oh, I'm in something. I feel lost, but I'm somewhere. So I might just say that as well. You're in something that is not easy, but it is incredibly transformative. So if you can surrender, know that this is a loving process. It's a fierce process, but it's a loving process. And you will emerge more wholly yourself, more wholly alive, connected, and lit up. That is coming.
Got it. That's beautiful. One thing I love about the way you described the dissolution process is you did not mention anything about action planning, problem solving, deciding what to do. Because I think often that's a problem, isn't it? When we're in the dark night of the soul, we think, how do I think my way out of this? And you can't.
I'm so glad you said that. Now, you might be in the dissolution phase and have to figure out your parenting agreement, right? There may be plans that need to happen, but as much as you can, don't plan, don't think what kind of relationship do I want to get into next? That's coming. It's not now. And in fact, thinking your way, the strategizing, the gritting your teeth actually makes it worse. So let's wait on that. It's coming. There's a few things you need to do first or not do first, but that is not what this phase is for.
Amazing. Well, I'm not going to ask you any more questions now because I feel like I find this absolutely fascinating. I think this is really beautiful, loving work that you're doing. I know there are many, many people who need this sort of support. And I hope everybody listening takes heart from this in terms of wherever you are in your process, or your best friend, or your partner, or your child, or your parent, or your colleague, you can get help with it. And I'll just say again, your website, which is liyanasilver.com, which is LIYANASILVER. And do go and check that out. You won't get an arm won't come reaching out of the computer and force you to do anything. Just go and check it out. Nothing bad will happen. And actually, honestly, Liyana, if I was in one of that sort of place at the moment, you would be a wonderful person to reach out to, because I could just imagine there's a very spacious feeling in the way you talk about it. I can imagine you holding me very delicately and spaciously so I can have my own journey. You're not trying to fix the person. You're not trying to psychoanalyze the person. You're not trying to force them to get the lesson. Right.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So there's that lovely, lovely, elegant energy
Mm.
that I really, really appreciate. So thank you. And you've written these amazing books. What have we got here? We've got Waking Up in the Dark Night of Divorce and Feminine Genius. So amazing work.
Mm, thank you. Thank you. And it is true. I feel as though just a visit to the website, a book, whatever, it is my intention, my hope that that gentle holding, but really a guide on the transformational process comes through. So thank you for noticing that about me. And it's my hope.
Comes
It's
through.
my
And the
hope.
fact you've been living it for all these years probably got something to do with it.
Right? Yes, it better.
So we've talked about quite a lot today, and it's been really fascinating.
Mm.
Like I said, I could talk to you for hours. Has there been a favorite part of our conversation today?
What a great question. Well, I love that you started with depth and it's broad topic. And so I guess I want to say a thank you and a nod to you and all my fellow, I call us depth dwellers. Perhaps we're like deep sea fish. Um, it's not that we can't come up to the sunlight or, have some plankton on the surface of the water, but there is deep nourishment, our specific nourishment in the depths, in the unknown as of yet. So I want to appreciate this. This is not the path most traveled. There are not as many people hanging out in the depths, not as many fish in the deep waters. So I see you, I feel you. I'm glad to be here with you.
Thank you so much. I feel very touched by that because I think, as you say, there's not all that many people, and being recognizing one another is really important. And I will just extend that to the listeners as well and say this recognition is for you also, depth travelers, and everyone out there who's helping other people traveling the depths as well. So bless you. Thank you so much.
Bless you, bless you. And thank you for bringing me here.
Oh, my pleasure. So everyone watching and listening, thank you so much for watching and listening. Please do tell your friends, give us a thumbs up, go to Liyana's website. And if you are a spirit-led conscious leader or practitioner out there, and you feel yourself kind of stepping deeper into your calling, I help people with that. So you can actually get a clarity call with me at beingspace.world/clarity. And that is in the show notes. So thank you very much, everybody. And thank you again, Liyana Silver.
Thank you again.